So I'd like to welcome everybody for coming out to the Silicon Slopes marketing chapter. The proof is in the pillow. We have an amazing session lined up for you today. Before we kick off, I do want to start off just with a couple of quick announcements. The first, here we go, I'm not sure if any of you seen or not, but Silicon Slopes, the marketing chapter here, is hosting a marketing summit on April 10th of next year. We're going to be announcing more speakers and sessions in the coming months, but I want to just put that on your radar. And I'm really happy to announce that our title sponsor for this event is actually the Executive Education program at the University of Utah. And we have Jason Sloan from that program here to tell us a little bit more about what they're doing.
Thank you. We are very excited to be partnering with Silicon Slopes on this inaugural marketing summit. For those who aren't familiar with University of Utah Executive Education, I'm going to start off with a little bit of a humble brag. We were recently ranked top 5 in the nation for executive education by the Financial Times. We are top 50 in the world. All of our executive programs rank top 20. That's our online MBA, executive MBA. And while a lot of you, I'm sure, think that it's a very far drive up to campus, it's really only 25 minutes. I timed it on the way from there to here today. And we have a parking garage right next to our building on campus. So trust me, when you come to the marketing summit, it will literally be 1 minute walk across the street, and you'll be into an amazing experience. So in executive education, what we do is we take the content from our MBA professors and distill that into actionable learning workshops, programs that allow you to continue your professional development. As we all know at this point, probably most of you, who has the same title today that they did 10 years ago? Anybody? You know, most of the jobs probably you have today didn't even exist 10 years ago. So we are here to help you on that learning journey. Our executive leadership certificate, we have 11 open enrollment classes that you can choose from leading change, managing high-performing teams. Our Women in Leadership program is one of our most popular programs. We filled out the fall about a month ago. We are now introducing 2 cohorts for the spring, and it's been by far our most popular program. So anyway, we'll learn more about that as you guys come up to Exec Ed, but we hope to see you there. And again, thank you to Silicon Slopes, Matt, Pete, and the team.
Thank you, Jason. I'm horrible at introducing myself. I usually remember way later, so I feel like it's a victory today that I remember to say my name before we do get too farther. So my name is Matthew Holman. For those of you that don't know, I'm pretty active, especially in the e-commerce community. I do a lot of work with subscriptions and also an e-commerce group called Commerce Catalyst. So we're actually sponsoring lunch today. Just want to take a brief moment to tell you about a really great event that we have coming up in just about 2 weeks. September 6th, it's a full-day conference in Sandy. We have tons of amazing sessions. We've got this fun little GIF that's just going to start rolling through and showing you some of the cool people. But these 2 gentlemen are going to be on a panel as well. There's a few other people out here that I see that are going to be involved, like David and Alex. We have tons of sessions from operations to marketing. We're trying to hit all the different aspects of the e-commerce business. I've got a really great special right now I'm going to tell you about, but before I finish, I just want to say that the ethos behind Commerce Catalyst is really all about hands-on learning. So I've been to tons of conferences where things stay super high level and you feel like you really didn't learn anything, or you already knew that you need to start a blog or you need to find a better manufacturer, right? So these sessions are geared so that no matter what one you go into, you're going to walk away with 1 to 2 really key points that you can go back and start testing or implementing your business, as well as connecting with other people that are doing or trying to do the same thing you are. So for right now, this afternoon, if you use code Silicon Slopes at checkout, you will get a free ticket. So that is available basically for this afternoon. I'm going to turn it off around like 3, some point when I remember. But you can share that with people that are not here. But for anybody that wants a ticket, that is a free ticket code right now available this afternoon. So there you go. Without any further ado, did anybody grab that? We'll give it just. Oh, there's also flyers. I have flyers with the code on as well if you need it. Okay. I'm really excited for this. I would like to introduce two of my favorite people that are super active in the ecosystem here in Utah, building up marketing as well as e-commerce, Jay Davis and Damian Dayton. Now, before we start pulling skeletons out of closets and stuff like that, I want to give you both a chance to just give a brief introduction about yourself, what you're up to now, maybe about your family or anything you like.
Take it.
So I'm Jay. I have been doing video marketing, viral marketing for quite a while. In 2017, I started Creatively so that we could work with clients. Met Damien. We really hit it off and loved working together. And then as we were working with clients and helping people launch and grow, we eventually decided to start our own brand and started PillowCube in 2019. So I have 4 daughters, beautiful wife. So pretty great life. Can't complain.
Awesome. Damien?
I met Jay in probably 2018. I've been doing video and TV for a little over 2 decades now, and about a decade ago kind of discovered this amazing niche in the online space. You know, I've done commercials for like the Daytona 500 and big venues, and realizing that those people, when you buy an ad, they take your money, whether your ad's good or not. And online, if your ad's good, you actually can make more money. It costs less. And so began developing some of the same ideas that Jay had been developing. And so we met up, gave a lot of high fives, and became a team. Jay and I both like making pizzas. I have just 2 boys and also a beautiful wife, certainly much more attractive than I am. And we also just really believe in you can't succeed by yourself, and so we've wanted to invest as much as possible in our community here. I think Silicon Slopes gets a lot of buzz for the tech companies, but I think there's a lot of people in a lot of different industries doing great things and want to have some support for us product people too, and D2C companies.
And I do want to give you some credit too. We had lunch a few months ago, and you inspired me with a comment about one of your own mission statements at Creatively, which is like embrace your genius. Is that right? Did I? Mm-hmm. And so that idea of like following your passion and going after what you feel like you're really good at, what you can really add to the world, which I think is pretty powerful. So, okay, now I got that email from your assistant about the questions I'm not supposed to ask. So
yeah, just stay away from like
so no receding hairline questions, no Dungeons and Dragons, no Dungeons and Dragons, and then Jay, something about no ice cream. I don't quite understand that, but
Don't talk about ice cream.
okay,
No,
we will not talk about
We can
cold
talk about
case
ice cream.
at all. Okay, all right, guys.
We certainly shouldn't discuss that every month there's 6 delicious new flavors. Like, do not.
Just
about
leave that. Not talk about that. Okay, so I just want to say, I think what was really funny is before just this morning, a tweet I read was a guy complaining, a e-com brand, saying, you know, for all you agencies out there who claim you're so good at running ads, why don't you run your own? And it immediately made me think of this story, which I would like either one of you to start with, is tell me about how PillowCube started, because I feel like that is the biggest proof is in the pudding, money where your mouth is, rubber hits the road example of an agency taking on the challenges of running a brand.
Yeah, so I'd had the idea for PillowCube for a while, and not like the exact idea, but it was something I'd kind of been sitting on and thinking about. And as we were building different companies or helping with marketing and growing marketing for people, I really started to say to Damien and everyone else, like, we got to start our own brand. Like, I think it could be a really great offset to the agency side of things. It could help us learn a lot about our clients, kind of really put ourselves in their shoes. And so I'd had this idea for a while, and then it kind of gelled together, and I had these 2 samples of foam that someone had given us who was pitching us to be our client. And I kind of glued them together and hired a seamstress to make a cover, and I just started having everyone try it. And everyone was like, that's a really stupid idea. And then when they tried it, they were like, actually, that's like really comfortable. And so I really loved that, and Damien did an amazing job as we started talking about marketing, we started talking about how we position it. That was something that we used early on, was like, this looks really weird, but it actually works, so.
Yeah, and all the people, Jay, I like Jay's story on this. The test that you give people is you care what they have to say, but you watch what they do. And everybody that said it was really stupid and he gave them a pillow, they didn't give them back. they were like, oh, I lost it. My wife took it. Somebody else is using it. And I was like, yeah, they love it. And even though they say this is stupid, you should never do this. And we like to say we kind of decided to embrace the corners. The Pillow Cube looked different. It looked ridiculous. So let's lean into the things that are different. So our exact quote that we have painted on our walls is cultivate genius. And when we say genius, we're not talking about like Einstein genius. We're talking about that thing that's unique about you that you do better than anybody else. And you really need to focus on that and not just the stuff you're pretty good at, and focus on the stuff that you're great at and invest in that. And that's kind of what we did with that brand. And we kind of said like, hey, we're making all these other people rich. It'd be nice if we could make ourselves a little bit too. Turns out it's really hard because all that money goes back into growth and other things. But that's how we started. And since then, we've started a few other companies as well.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Damien said it's really easy. It's really easy. So I think it's really important from maybe an educational, like a foundational standpoint. Let's talk about the different levels of awareness within the funnel and the different types of role video can play in each of those. So we have like top of funnel, we've got brand awareness, we've got bottom of funnel, we've got brand performance. How do you see video playing a role in each of those?
That's a great question. So, we started Pillow Cube really with one asset, which is our Kickstarter video. And that asset is still working today. And if you watch carefully, it's all employees that are in the commercial. And our logo's wrong. We never shipped with that logo. The packaging, in the early days, we thought we could package this all in a cube-shaped package. We never were able to figure that out. So our packaging is wrong, our logo is wrong, but it still performs. And we've just slowly added to that ecosystem. So we really believe in you really need to think about your marketing funnel as an ecosystem, and you need an apex predator, and you need vultures that are picking the meat off the bone, and you need herbivores out there doing stuff. So I did just a quick analysis, if you're okay. I won't share actual dollar numbers, but just percentages. With Pillow Cube now has a number of different products, but everybody knows. Our recent study says 1 in 20 people in America knows the Pillow Cube brand. Certainly not the biggest pillow company in the world, but they know that. And it's largely because 85% of the Pillow Cube ad spend budget is spent at the top of the funnel. And out of that, and 65% of that is exclusively on our hero type video. So that original Kickstarter video, which has been re-edited 70,000 times, has close to 1 billion views on it now. And each year we kind of had a new hero, and we would kind of up our game, like, hey, I think we can hire an actor this time. And what if we hired a bunch of actors this time? And we kept on making better and better stuff, but we never at any point had to remove anything from the funnel. So we find that video works incredibly, especially long form, works really well at the top of the funnel in the prospecting. Then if you dig into our funnel, you'll see there is UGC is playing a role at the top of the funnel. It hasn't scaled quite as large. And then in the middle of the funnel, where you've had awareness, you've touched the brand a couple of times, you'll still sing videos, but they're cut downs. They're 30-second pieces, and more UGC there. But then in our retargeting, we're not using very much video at all. A lot of stills, a lot of graphics. Pillow Cube's graphic designer, head of brand, Josh Falk, is over there. He makes amazing and amazingly weird stuff that catches people's attention. I believe that video can play a role at all, but just for the sake of this is a case study for a lot of you, we can share some real world examples. We're really using video heavily at the top of the funnel, still playing a significant portion at the middle, and at the bottom a lot of graphics and stills. Doing different things at each portion.
Yeah, I would just add, I think a lot of the brands make the mistake of just harvesting basically everything that's available, and they never are planting. And I think that's what you need to do with top of the funnel kind of video. You gotta make people aware. We always want there to be a lot more people who are aware of Pillow Cube, and then we focus on how do we add more products, how do we add more channels, places to buy, that then harvest those seeds that we've planted. And I think a lot of brands who are struggling to grow kind of inverse that. They're just constantly like the second something's ready to harvest, they harvest. And so they're doing all middle, bottom funnel marketing, and they're just grabbing whatever Facebook will give them that's super targeted, and they're never building kind of that bigger audience. So that's really how Pillow Cube has been able, we're now the second most searched pillow online after My Pillow, and we really did that through that methodology.
So I'm curious then, so if you're talking about like, say, top of funnel, the cost, you mentioned like running ads or you turn over a creative and they just do with it what they will. Is it the nature of the platform on Facebook and Instagram where like the video views are cheaper or the creative is good so it gets watched more, the platform wants to serve it up more? How is that strategy really working within those paid platforms for you?
Well, within the paid platforms, you really have to look at each one very differently and distinctly, and how, I mean, everything from Hulu to, even though Meta, you do your ad spend through one property, the users interact with it very differently. Because, for instance, on Facebook, if I comment on a Facebook ad, you're more likely to see it. A comment is actually more valuable than a share. You cannot share on Instagram, at least not in the way we think about shares. I saw an interview with the CEO of Instagram who said the #1 bandwidth usage for Instagram right now is not in stories and reels that you might think, and it's not in the feed. The #1 use of Instagram bandwidth is in direct messages. And it's not, that text doesn't take up that much time. So it's not people sending messages, it's people forwarding on ads, funny memes, and other things they've seen. So you take that into consideration, and then there's a big algorithmic difference between like a TikTok and a Facebook. We still do a lot of growth, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, but we have re-edited our content to perform differently. We look at a second-by-second basis how people are looking at them. And people kind of know that we do funny stuff, but we're trying to use that funny stuff to disguise what we're doing, which is selling you things. And if I can keep you entertained for 4 minutes, then I have the equivalent of 8 30-second commercials that are each progressing you along your kind of sales journey.
And I think like Damien was saying, I think if you're building an ad, the biggest thing you need to worry about is being ignored or not cared about. Where most brands worry about is like, is this on brand? Is this okay? Are we going to offend everyone? You should offend tons of people. That's the goal of a marketer. Like, you should be offending people. You should get people talking. And too many brands, Yeti, the founders of Yeti once said this, and I thought it was genius, which is you have to earn the right to be boring in your marketing. In the beginning, you don't have that right. You don't have the right to just make boring, kind of blah, vanilla stuff. You got to do stuff that stands out. So we're always trying to, like, sometimes clients will be like, oh, people are, mad about this, or we're calling out this industry. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. That's how you get people commenting. That's how you get people sharing. We love, our first ad, everyone was so mad that the main guy was wearing Tevas without socks for some reason. Or he was wearing Tevas with socks.
Yeah.
And people are so angry, and we're like just feeding it. We're like, yeah, like, you guys are idiots. That's how everyone does it. There's another brand I talked to in Austin where they have like a touchscreen product. Every single video they use their pinky to touch the touchscreen, and then when people are like, why are you guys doing that? They're like, that's how everyone does it. And you see this a lot in TikTok. People like throw laundry detergent in their fridge. You want people to talk. And I think a lot of times brands are too worried about that. Another one of my favorite quotes is the founder of Nike said, you don't have a brand until you're doing at least 100 million a year. So until you're doing 100 million a year, you don't have a brand, just market and be interesting.
I just had this image of you sitting in like a basement somewhere reading Facebook comments and just laughing like, that's right, keep talking, keep talking. Keep talking.
Well, I mean, in the first real year of that company, Jay and I were responding to all the comments. And it wasn't because it was smart. It was because we were the employees. Yeah. And we'd be up at night. And we kind of developed like, yeah, you kind of want to fan the flames, but you want to be human. You don't want to be a jerk. It's okay to be funny. It's okay to have we wanted to have the same personality that the ads had, which was lighthearted. You mention tacos in any ad, and you're going to increase engagement by 5 to 10%. Just, especially if you use the wrong tacos. If you use like crispy shell tacos, people want to tell you how you're wrong. So they get mentioned quite a bit.
So Jay, you're talking about how like, Phil Knight's comment about you're not a brand until you're 100 million.
Yeah.
So what would you say is some advice to thinking about making videos? Because I agree, a lot of brands are thinking about, is this on brand? Is this our story? Is this our thing? what elements should people be thinking about putting into a video? Is it always comedy? Is it always something polarizing? What are some other ideas you have?
Yeah, I don't think you have to be like super polarizing. We're never like, we always avoid politics. We never make comments on politics. So we're not trying to like go that far, but just having a stance. Like, I'm shocked how many times brands are like, we can't make a negative comment about the flower industry. And it's like, who cares? Like, the flower committee is going to be angry that you bashed flower
They're around
delivery.
every
like,
corner.
Yeah,
They're around
they're everywhere. But I think that's a lot of times as a brand, just being willing to like, hey, what do we stand for? What do we believe in? We make jokes about how we hate stomach sleepers, we hate back sleepers. They're the worst humans. Like, no one cares. No one's that offended. But it is just a little bit of like, we're standing out. And so I think as you're making content, it's like, hey, what can we do and just be bold and say something that gets people to stop and care. For the other part of your question was like, I think as you're making that video, you really just want to focus on doing something that will get people to stop scrolling or to listen. Damien kind of hinted at this, but for Facebook, you're trying to visually get people to stop in that first 3 to 5 seconds. With YouTube, most people are listening. So you're trying to use some audio cue to get them to start listening, or to not hit skip and keep paying attention. So it's kind of like knowing the platforms enough that you can say, hey, how do we grab people? Oh, and then humor. We just love humor because it's been shown through a lot of studies that it's the easiest way to get people to feel every other emotion. So if you want to get people to cry, the worst thing to do is to actually try and make them cry. The easiest way is to make them laugh and then kind of pull at the heartstrings. And so that's why Damien always says this quote, or says this statistic, which is really important. The most shared but least watched videos online are ones that try and use kind of emotions to get people to cry. Everyone shares them, no one watches them. So if you want,
It's usually like charitable videos, people doing something good. Everybody shares them. We have a lot of really good statistics. They're not watching them all the way through. They're like, oh, I want to be this type of person. I'll hit share, but I'm not going to watch it.
I saw the first 5 seconds. That's enough for me to know it's a good video. I'm going to send it to my wife, make her think I watched all 2 minutes of it.
Yeah. My goal is, I feel like we're kind of trying to escape this because our stuff is funny or uses humor. Whether it's funny or not is really subjective, up to you guys. But my goal approaching each brand is to try to understand that brand's personality, and your personality should have facets to it. Nobody wants to be stuck at a party with a guy that's just all business. And at the same time, nobody wants to be stuck at the party with the guy with the lampshade on his head who's just telling jokes and you can't get a word in edgewise.
Can you use a brand as an example, aside from Pillow Cube?
No, I mean, I think you can look at some of the top brands that everybody aspires to that have earned the right to do things. Like, even if you read Ogilvy on advertising, he's talking about some of the top brands in the world that have gotten there and they've earned your attention. And so Nike can preach to us and North Face can preach to us. But I think some of the brands have become a little bit more one-dimensional, but you'll find they go back to these things, Everybody talks about the latest release that Apple has, but think about the campaign that changed them from being the minority computer that just designers used, and it was the silly Mac versus PC ads that got them to enter in the conversation, and they entered a lot of conversation, and they were trying to get everyday people to use them, not just the designers because they looked cool. So I have lots of sayings, and our team teases me about it a little bit. But one of them is that cool is corrosive. We want to be cool, but if that is our only goal in our advertising, we forget the value that we're offering to people. You can make a gorgeous and a cool and a hip ad that looks just like Apple, but if you haven't earned it, people will just ignore you. And I remember one of our clients came to us, showed us one of their competitor videos, and like, we want to make an ad like theirs. It was beautiful, and it was emotional, and it had 327 views on YouTube. And we said, yeah, nobody's looking at that, and everybody in your space is making ads like that. If you want to stick out, you need to understand your brand's personality, and there's a limit. So we usually start our campaigns with a strategy retreat, and it involves some brainstorming, but part of what we're doing in that is we're testing out jokes with the client and saying like, nope, that's not going to work for them. We're not going to do zombie jokes with this group, and we're not but finding what their limits are and finding what their personality's like and kind of dissecting it and feeling, one of my other brand philosophies, which goes with Cultivate Genius, is Dolly Parton's quote, "The secret to life is figuring out who you are and doing it on purpose." And I think if I could distill like the key to marketing, it's that. It's like, oh, we're this. And that's why it's not important to get involved in politics unless your product is political. But your brand should have the personality. You should be able to reflect the feeling. Is if your company's a great place to be and to work at, and it feels great to be there, and your product is a great product to have, and if you want to capture the facets of that, and you really want to have a three-dimensional brand voice and not just a flat, we have one message to say, and we're going to try so hard to be Nike or Apple.
That was beautiful. No, really, as you're talking about facets, I was thinking as an example like Ann Caller, for example, right? Like they have some funny ads, right? Where they're doing the spills and the guy's like running around, but then at the same time, the other facets is that those shirts are really durable, right? Like they're hardy, they last a long time, they're comfortable. Like there's other elements of that brand that they're able to bring. Oh, you're wearing one right now.
I'm wearing one right now.
It's the only white dress shirt I have, at least that still fits. But yeah, so. Okay, so you guys talked a little bit about platforms. You mentioned like difference between stopping the scroll on Facebook, stopping the scroll or the skipping ad on YouTube. What about say like TikTok, or do you do any ads on LinkedIn or other platforms that you would say some advice or ideas on people to stop the scroll there?
Yeah, I would say one thing that is really interesting, for a long time creatively, we kind of always viewed, well, we really can't do this for ourselves, because we're like B2B, we're not selling to consumers, and so for a long time we kind of avoided going through that process for ourselves. And then this year we launched an ad to promote creatively, and we're running it on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn now, yeah.
And LinkedIn, and it's just crushed it. Like it's been amazing. We've had calls with, top 100 companies in the country, in the world, who are like, hey, our executives saw this on Instagram. Thought it was really great. So I think that's one thing I would say is like a lot of this stuff, even if you're B2B, even if you're SaaS, I think a lot of SaaS B2B companies could learn from D2C. And so I think there's a lot of platforms out there. Damien can kind of talk more about TikTok. He knows more about that side of it. But like there are definitely ways to leverage this on pretty much any platform.
I think the number one rule across all the platforms is this: don't be boring. And I think most people here, if you're involved in business, your LinkedIn page probably looks more like Facebook from 10 years ago. Like people are sharing I just had a kid, here's my successes, here's my wins, and you're not just sharing your resume and asking for a job. One of the big differences that we see is, early on Jay's like, hey, we should check out, this is 3 years ago, check out what's happening on TikTok, it's growing. There's a huge difference. You can edit things down for different platforms. One of the main things that I would like people to know is if you want to grow on that platform is your product might not be right for that platform. So on Facebook and Instagram, all the meta properties, they take what they know about you and all this information about your demographic, and then you can leverage that to get to them. On TikTok, so they know like, oh, people that like bikes love watching this video, so it's going to appear in your feed. TikTok is 100%, their algorithm is 100% behavioral. They don't care who you are, where you live, what you do, what your politics are. They care what you've stopped and stared at the past, which is why in your feed you have some totally weird thing that keeps coming up because you stopped once to look like, why is that guy trimming that cow hoof? And now you get cow hoof trimming videos. And you guys know what I'm talking about because it's zip popping or cow hoof trimming or shoot. There's all sorts of, but it's because that algorithm is 100% behavioral based. So you want to think about that as you're creating content. The products and brands that I think are winning on TikTok are not the big brands that are investing there because I think it's great. They are involving behavioral niches. They're watching people pack up stuff that you're interested in seeing. So it's finding a different sort of niche on TikTok where I think the best brands for meta properties are brands that are much broader. We talked about ad buying. Still the cheapest ad unit to buy in America is show this to everybody in America. Even though persona work can help you a lot, showing an ad to everybody in America on Facebook can cost you between a penny and 3 cents a view if you make something really great. 7 cents if your ad is average. 10 cents if your ad is bad. But if you can find a way for your content to talk to as many people as possible, it's a fantastic way to get your brand out there. If you want to be on a TikTok, I would find those niche behavioral moments that relate to the specific wants and desires of your customers and resonate with that.
So I've got some D&D joke TikToks I need to show you so that you
Yeah,
can get that
D&D
stuff
content
out there.
is killing it.
Yeah.
We're big D&D fans around the office. We weren't until one employee got us to play for lunch break, and 4 years later, he's not even there, and like 3 days a week, somebody's slaying dragons.
Well, I had a couple of my in-laws that have never played before said something about thinking it might be fun like a month ago, and we've been running a campaign a couple times. So
Yeah.
it's fun. You should all check it out. Okay. Shameless plug for Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so a question then, because you've brought up quite a few different elements of like finding the different the different facets of your brand, right? Like scroll stopping, things like that. From a maybe a high level view, how do you look at the video production process? Is it 50% the development and the creative and the story, and then it's just a little bit of time doing the shooting and the editing? How do you like look at that? Or for people that are maybe newer to video production, how should they be thinking? Because I feel like I spend way more time on editing maybe than I do on anything else, and maybe that's a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think probably one of the biggest differences for us between maybe like a typical agency is we have a process we walk people through that is really trying to discover kind of what Damien was talking about, which is discovering who they are, what makes them tick, why do people buy the product. We usually try and push back on like who they're going after. A lot of times people have honed in too close on a specific persona, or they're like hyper targeting. Owlet was an example when we first started working with Owlet. They were really targeting women in the second trimester, and that was it. No other targeting. It was like women in the second trimester. And so we started to just push like, hey, you know, husbands are a part of that discussion, or partners. There's women who maybe we could go broader, grandparents, like, and so a lot of times that's through that process. So we spend a lot of the time, when you look at like the total days to make an ad, you know, we're shooting for 2 days and then we're spending 88 days on all the other stuff. So I think that is where a lot of times people just immediately jump into an idea and they're like, oh, I've got a funny idea, or I have a cool idea, or I have this idea of a video in my head, or I want to do a documentary about my life. And they don't really start with trying to like, who are our customers? Why do they buy? Why do they not buy? And as time goes on, especially for founders, you're usually going to become less and less like your customers. We have a lot of clients where they started it for a very specific reason. And then as time goes on, it's like, well, now there's these people who are using it in ways you never imagined they would use it. You know, we have different types of sleepers that we've now made products for beyond just how I use the product. And a lot of that came because we were like, hey, maybe we aren't representative of all of our customers. So more from like a product standpoint, there's a lot of that, but that's really our process, is jumping in, like, who are you? What makes you tick? What do your customers say? What do they not say? There's always just kind of a good, and if you're making a video, find people who can have kind of this good relationship where they can push back a little bit on like, you know, is that true, or has that just been true to this point? Not to beat up on Owlet, but another one that sticks out to me was when we first started talking to them, they really saw it as a huge win that they were like, 90% of people who use this work in a hospital. And we're like, is that good or is that bad? I think that might be bad, that the only people who buy your product are people who work in a hospital. Maybe we're not communicating to the average person who's not a doctor or a nurse in a way that makes it easy to understand what you guys are doing. And so that was like kind of an unlock, like, that was like, oh wait, yeah, that's a good point. We've been seeing this as like, this is the best thing about us. Maybe it's not the best thing about us. And that came by not immediately just jumping into what is the actor gonna say, or like, we're always starting there from like more the business level. So if you're making a video, that's what I would say. Get some people who can push back on you. kind of be a good sounding board and start asking some of those questions.
Question those assumptions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to support what he said, Tom's here, head of sales. Raise your hand, Tom, right back there. And he gets frustrated because by far the thing we lose money on most is production. Rennie, our head of production, is also here, and she's frustrated with, like, we only have this much to work with because we just spend all the production dollars, but we really spend a lot of time. And if I could say one thing that is important to understand before you go into your production or any time of ad campaign is what we inside the company call the itch and the scratch. And it's not just the problem that you solve. Understanding at the pain level, at the visceral gut level, what's the pain here? What is the problem that I have? And how can I understand, maybe it's multiple plane, and how can I understand that for the most amount of people? I think Kizik's done a fantastic job of that. You know, originally the shoe could have been viewed just as an ability shoe, right, for people that have trouble putting on their shoe. But they've been able to show it's useful for everybody, and that's a great way, they're a great example of that. And for us, the medical thing with Ality we were talking about was, the itch that they were addressing, the pain they were solving, is people that were worried that their babies are going to die, which is important. But most parents are like, most of us have babies, are going to be okay, but we're terrified of not sleeping well. And by the second trimester, all my baby money's gone. I've spent it on things I don't need yet. But if we could address their core itches, which were about being a better parent, being present with your children, sleeping better through the night, and so that's challenging those core assumptions and really spending the time distilling what that pain is and then visually showing that so that the only way to scratch that itch is with your product. You feel like, I need to get to the bottom of that. And there's 1,000 ways to do that. And then you just have lots of opportunities to come at that from different angles. So we spend as much time writing a script as we do editing, as we do in pre-production. So a typical engagement with us is almost 3 months. But Max, our current lead writer and creative director, says, I can create a script in a week. I can have a really crappy one done in 2 weeks, but give me 3 weeks and it'll be great. And it's the exact same amount of typing, you know. It's understanding and solving, unlocking the problem, and coming with the epiphanies. So
I love that. That's great. Okay, just because I feel like this is a really powerful duo right here and this topic is pretty top of mind, I wanted to allow for a little bit more time for questions. So if nobody has anything, I'll just go into some questions about ice cream. But would like to start with some questions from the audience. We would ask to send a mic around because that way the recording won't be able to pick you up unless the question's out there. So I'm going to, are you getting another one, Nicole? Okay. Well, I guess maybe I can.
I mean, I'm willing to share if you want to come on.
I got one right here.
Oh, thanks, Nicole. Right there.
Okay, so I heard you mention that you, for top of funnel marketing, you're doing long form video. And it's
Yes.
always the hook, right? So as you're writing those scripts, as you're developing those things, how do you identify the hook? And is that strictly with your experience or is it in conjunction with the client? Like, how do you identify that? And do you do any A/B testing when you do that?
Yes, we do a lot of A/B testing. It's not traditional A/B testing, though. We traditionally build a script with at least 3 hooks built into it, usually more, that are part of the story. I want to think about how much sausage I want to share with you, like our process of making the videos. But what's really important is looking at how consumers watch your content on a second-by-second basis, and there's a couple of ways of doing that. A lot of times we think we have a brilliant hook, and it just falls flat, and then we re-edit and re-edit and re-edit. And like I said, that early Kickstarter video has been at the top of our funnel for 4 years now. Not the only thing there, but it has been re-edited a number of times, testing different parts of the hook. One of the hooks is meet your new pillow, and he has a box, and that is a hook that asks a question, you know. One of our hooks is, look at this. This is the shape between your head and your shoulders, and what people easily understand about the Pillow Cube, it's designed to fit that shape.
That's what got me.
Yeah.
That video is what got me to buy it.
Yeah, and so we usually have a number of hooks because you're thinking about you're engaging and re-engaging your audience. So I just came off of a shoot on Saturday, and as I was reviewing the shooting script I was saying, these 5 parts of the scripts are possible places to begin. And if they don't work, we also may be trying shortened versions of those long form. The other reason we really like long form is if you have a 4-minute commercial, if you've shot a 5-minute commercial, you end up with a 4-minute commercial, you've got a lot of 30-second commercials in there too you can pull out. And your viewer curve looks like this, so anything that happens here can make a great short commercial at a different part of the funnel. So yeah, we test hooks. A lot of it comes with intuition and trying new writers. Each client we write for, we might write 5 or 6 fully formed scripts for them. But a pretty good indicator is if it gets a laugh in the room, if it gets an emotional reaction in the room when you either bring it up, when you read it, when you're going to get a reaction from people. And you know, that's a pretty good indicator. And yeah, covering yourselves by creating a lot of content always gives you more abilities to test and try more things.
Yeah, I would just add, the thing I notice more than anything when people show me a video is that they really haven't thought of that intro. So I wrote a LinkedIn post recently about this. I saw an ad that someone made, and the first 15 seconds was just kind of nothing. Like I watched it, and I was like, a documentary filmmaker made this. I could just tell. It was like, it's a doc filmmaker who assumes, like most doc filmmakers, that everyone in the theater is not going to leave in the first 15 seconds. We don't make that assumption. We're like, the second people see this, they're going to leave. So we are like looking at every single frame and like, when are people skipping, when are people leaving? And so that's like the biggest mistake most people make when making videos, is they're 15 seconds in, it's like, you've said nothing, you've done nothing, but you had like a really beautiful shot of an ocean. But no one cares. Like you have to, like when you're making ads, you have to shift your mindset to away from that kind of theater mindset of like everyone's kind of captive, and if an hour in it's really bad, they might leave. Like most of us have probably never walked out of a movie, I would assume. Maybe like once or twice. But every single day, everyone's walking out of your ad the first 2 seconds in. So you really got to be like, what am I saying at second 1, at second 2? What image am I showing them to grab their attention? And if you do that, like it's amazing how much better ads are, and usually can just be recut. But it is that shift in mindset of like, I have to assume that no one cares. And that's really harsh, but when you have people sitting in front of YouTube, they really don't. And so if you're not grabbing them in the first 3 seconds, they're just gonna, they're waiting for that skip ad thing to appear, and they're like, gone. And so you really have those 5 seconds, or on Facebook, it's that time of that scroll. And so you really got to think through that, and don't just have 15 seconds of fluff that you're kind of like, oh, this is cool. And it's like, well, and I love watching people, like we'll hand people phones with the ads, and I watch their finger. Like when are they, because subconsciously we all kind of start reaching for the skip ad button. And you'll see people do that. We've watched people, you'll watch people like, oh, sorry, I forgot. I was about to scroll away because this sucks. And then I reminded myself that you're here watching me. And that's what you got to watch. You got to be really, it's not like making ads, it's not for the faint of heart, because you got to be willing to hear really tough feedback.
And I just want to add, that's also true about a 30-second. If you're on Hulu, people are like, well, I want to get back to my episode of Justified, so I'm going to have to watch all 30 seconds of this.
That's literally the series I'm watching right now.
Yeah, it's okay.
Inside my head.
The original's great. Anyway, but you're like, I've committed to this 30-second, so 30-second ads have their punchline at the end. We find by 30 seconds, if we've earned their view, especially if we're there for a minute, we've got them for 4 minutes. If they, like, you rarely turn off an ad once you've been watching. I was recently watched the new Wes Anderson film, Asteroid City. Big Wes Anderson fan myself. I've never seen more people leave the theater in my life, and I've seen some offensive films before, and it's not because it's offensive, it's because they were confused. And I think that's another mistake that you make. If you're dealing with unclear emotions in your ad, then people leave. And we talk about this with our directors all the time. It's like, I hammer on this point, like, yeah, I don't like dark lit scenes. And it's not because I don't have a taste for beautiful cinematography, it's because people are watching on their phone, and the moment that they deal with disquiet, uncomfortableness in the film, or the ad, they just swipe away because that's easier. I love uncomfortable comedy, and unless you know you are going to watch Tim and Eric or Nathan For You, as soon as it starts getting a little uncomfortable, you swipe away, unless that's your niche.
One of the biggest fears I have when making videos is that there's some big assumption I have around the product or the offering that I'm not explaining. Like, I'm just assuming they know because I'm the one who wrote the script and know all about it. Like, so I think it's good to try to question those types of things.
And just selling the product. I'm amazed how many times you see stuff and you're like, that was 3 minutes and I have no idea what you do. I have no idea what product you sell, but it's like kind of like value driven, like, we care about people and that stuff, and that's okay, but it's, again, is this the point of this to tell people about your company's mission, or is it to sell product? And we sell product. Like, that's what marketers do. We don't do that stuff. So sell product and ask people. Like, we'll do surveys. We'll show people that, and like, what do we sell? What is our mission? What is the goal of Pillow Cube? And it's like one of the best experiences for me was I saw someone at Disneyland wearing a Pillow Cube shirt, and they're like, "Oh, I love how you guys really are all about like side sleepers and making ergonomic pillows that fit their sleep position." I was like, well, okay, that's perfect. I was like a huge compliment because she got that from the ads. So that's what I would focus on and really ask yourself, are we selling the product? So.
Okay, another question. You guys are getting some really great responses here, so don't hold back. Bailey over here.
So you've kind of touched on this, but after you hook people into these videos, what is it about the video that's keeping them watching for 4 minutes? Because I think we've seen a lot of people, myself included, it's just you swipe, you swipe, you swipe, but then when it gets to the cow hoof video, I'm watching for 2 minutes. And so what is it about these ads that after that hook, what's keeping them there, and what are you doing that's keeping them for 4 minutes?
The ad buyers have all made this, or the platforms have made this assumption that everybody has a shorter attention span, and it's just absolutely not true because we'll watch 10 minutes of cow hoof training, right? For us, I think there's 6 things I usually want to accomplish in a video, 5 or 6 maybe, not in order. For us, the humor is part of the connective tissue. Sometimes it's the story is the connective tissue, and we talk about this, like, what's the connective tissue that's like, I want some social validation, and that's what UGC does. And if you just have UGC videos, you're missing out on all the other things you need to do, like explaining your product. Showing your product work is sometimes one of the best hooks. So we find things that retain are a great joke, a great demonstration that makes them see the product in a way they haven't before, a change of scenery, like shifting from your actors to a montage of UGC can help. So that's kind of the main thing that I like to use humor for. Humor is rarely our hook. Sometimes it's kind of the slap that gets you interested, but it's like, I have a joke, it's not very good, but you're gonna listen to it, and when you're done, if you don't laugh, you're like, okay, well, I'll watch another 5 seconds, there's another joke coming. And then, oh, I didn't realize that this also does this, and this product also does this, So I would say that's, and our biggest test is we just watch our stuff over and over again. And we're like, okay, I was getting bored here. And they're saying this really important stuff, but I was bored. So it doesn't matter how important it is. If they're bored, we have to put it somewhere else. It needs to be on their website or in an email to them. And so we're trying to make it, I say engaging, not in the social media sense, but in the sense that makes you lean forward and like, huh, that's interesting. Interesting information can make people lean forward. I mean, that's half of TikTok too, people explaining their expertise. So explaining interesting facts will get people, helping them see the world a little bit differently. We love disruptive products because any chance that you can say that the world is kind of broken and you haven't realized it, and here's why, and here's a simple reason, Like I look at your water bottle, and I would love to make an ad for them because that's the best water bottle I think out there because it's got a straw built in, but it's not built in a way that my kids spill when they drink. They can sip it, and it's like, that's fantastic. I want to show how other water bottles are stupid. Yeah. Well, I was actually pointing at your friend behind you. Sorry, that's a beautiful water bottle. She has the Owala, which is a Utah company. We're not even doing work for them, but their built-in straws are fantastic.
Polarizing again, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
but if you said like most water bottles are stupid, and we're going to tell you why, because people have strong feelings about their water bottles, we're going to have a discussion. We're going to have to talk about it, and that's good for us. So.
Okay, so can I ask a quick question, real? Because the ecom conference I'm putting on, there's 2 other ecom conferences in Utah right now.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to avoid making anybody mad saying I didn't like their conference. You're saying I should find a way to maybe be a little bit funny about that, or talk about it a little bit, or
I
could call mine
never.
the best even though it hasn't happened yet, like,
I believe your product should be the best, and you should have that confidence, and you should know why.
Sure.
I don't think you need to mention. I never want to mention your competition.
Okay.
We like to set up big, whatever. Like with Alec, we used to talk like, yeah, we're going after big baby, or we're going after big real estate when we work with Homey. We're going after, like, everybody loves a David and Goliath story, so that's fun. So I don't think, but you can say the old way of doing marketing is broken.
Right,
And
right,
this is why. You don't have to talk about, your competition is not their conference. It's people not going to conferences, right? Like,
you.
people can go to both of those conferences and
Right.
succeed. Your competition is people that think like, if I just spend more on newspaper ads, or thinking that what worked on Facebook 2 years ago still works is your competition.
right, that's a good point. Okay.
Two-time Pillow Cube buyer, so I'm a big fan.
Thank you for the support. Thank you for buying our support. for your
Yeah,
neck,
yeah.
So.
My kid ruined the first one, so I had to buy another one. So, but I'm stoked on it. My question: I come from the fintech space, so like legal and compliance is always what I'm thinking about when we're making an ad. Is this going to get approved? Are we able to say these things and back up our claims? I'm curious with your creative process and the interesting facts you want to share and what you want to say about your product, and especially like the need of the cube and how it fits your head. How do you balance your creativity and with what you can say, and how does that work in the e-commerce space?
Yeah, we run into that a lot. Usually the lawyers hate us because they're like, you guys always want to say these things. So, I mean, we go through that process with a lot of things. You have to be like, are we going to get in trouble for this? We've done parodies for Manly Bands, we did a parody of Lord of the Rings, and so you got to think about some of that stuff. But I think, like, Damien has this brilliant thing that we do all the time in all the departments at Pillow Cube and our other brands and at Creatively, which is we separate, and this is kind of what we talk about when we say there's no bad idea in a brainstorm. But Damien has like this methodology that makes that simple. So we have meetings that are called what if meetings, and we're just what ifing. And like I've threatened to kick CEOs out of that meeting as clients, like, hey, if you what if, or if you yeah but again, like you're gone, dude. Like you can't be in here. We're just what ifing. We're not talking about, well, this is going to be expensive, and yeah, but I don't know if people are going to like this. It's like we're just exploring possibilities. And so we kind of have that meeting. And we talk about big ideas, and we push clients, but also ourselves to like, hey, let's push against some of these things that maybe we've been afraid of. So another thing that we do in that Damien has really let out on developing is like bad ideas. Like, what's your worst idea you've ever had for marketing this company? And you get people to say some stuff that's like, everyone's kind of like, oh, is this okay? Are we really allowed to say like our worst ideas? And we have those meetings, and then separately we have a yeah but meeting. So you have the meeting of like, yeah, but we can't say that because we'll get sued, but when you mix those, that's where problems start. When you're trying to do those at the same time, and I can sit in a room now and I can immediately know who's the yeah butters and who's the what ifers, just naturally. You can push everyone to be a what ifer if you say, hey, the rule is you have to what if right now, and if you break this, you're out. But naturally, we all kind of know, like, yeah, I'm probably more of a yeah butter, or I'm more of a what ifer. And you can't mix those at the same time. It's just disastrous. Because you start going down a really fun idea, and you're like, cool, build on it, build on it, build it on it, and then someone's like, yeah, but I don't know if we can get Michael Jordan. And it's like, dude, we're not talking about that right now. Shut up. We're just talking about fun ideas. And you need to do that. Like, we do that with Pillow Cube with product. Because all of a sudden, you can come to a really cool new idea, and you can shoot it down, because that's what people did when I first started sharing Pillow Cube with people. A lot of people in the bedding space were like, oh, that's really not going to work, and here's why. Like, cut foam is really expensive. That's the most expensive material to use for making pillows. Then the other thing was like, oh, no one makes pillowcases like that. You guys will have to make your own pillowcases. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, we're the only people on the planet who will sell the pillowcase for this pillow. That's great. And so it's thinking through those. Stance, I remember, had like this, they had a certain type of display that only their socks fit on. And so they made it so that when like other stuff in retail, when other stuff gets cleared out, or if Stance was selling really fast, they didn't want the retailers taking the other lame socks and putting it in their spot. And so they made a little mount that only Stance socks would fit on. And so it's just kind of thinking through those. Initially, that's like, yeah, but we're going to have to train all the retailers, and they're going to be annoyed. And it's like, okay, but is it worth it? So that's kind of my secret hack that I stole from Damien. But is like, make sure you're not mixing that methodology. Because if you're on a fun brainstorming track, legal, sometimes finance, they'll kind of come in and be like, oh, okay, no more fun. So you got to separate those two things.
And just for the record, my wife is a yeah but, and I'm a what if. But we found to make it work is there's an important role for the legal and the finance, and their department becomes but how. And that's how you make it to the moon. When he's like, what if we went to the moon? It's impossible to go to the moon. There's no air up there. But then once you decide, okay, we've all agreed, we're going to the moon, we're going to figure it out, the but how is to figure out, okay, we need to generate oxygen, you know? And that's your compliance, what can come later. But because what you discover is the statement that you need to make in fintech that exposes the problem that you solve. And legals can have problem with it, but now your creatives have a very specific task to solve the language around that.
Direction.
And how can we solve that? Because it's our what if is big enough and great enough that we want to do that. And now we just have to solve this very specific problem instead of just the yeah but just rejects the idea offhand. And you don't get, so just don't invite compliance people to that first meeting. And I'm serious about that because they're not going to have fun because they're going to see their job is to swat flies all meeting long. And so once you've decided your plan, you're like, okay, here's our big crazy plan. I want all the problems, and now our but hows are going to solve it. And this is Rennie, our head of production. She gets to be our but how committee a lot too because she's like, okay, there's a unicorn, there's a demon, and we need to figure out a way to make somebody fly across the screen. And all those could have been yeah butted, but we decided like, well, that's important. That's amazing that people are going to see that. So now we're going to figure out how to do it. And turns out there's lots of ways to make people fly. We've found lots of ways to make dolphins jump across the screen, and know which room you want people to be in.
Okay, we have time for one more question. So, okay, there we go.
So I like how you guys mentioned on that first Kickstarter video, that you just had to be really scrappy and use the resources available to you at the time, right? So what would you recommend to someone who's doing zero video right now? Any practical tips to get from 0 to 1 on video?
Have you ever seen Three Amigos?
Yes, love that movie.
Like, what are you really great at? Do that on camera. You know, we were great at writing. Like, we knew we had to write. We didn't have budget to make something, but we could get a camera. We weren't actors, so you watch that first video, there's not a lot of acting. It's like the narrator moves it through, and each of us has like one line that they can step in and say. Like, so focus on what you're great at. Like, a great strategy right now on TikTok is just shipping up your product, showing your product working, but just don't be boring and have fun with it. But don't have to be dancing, but do what you're great at and do that on camera. I would say you could distill most marketing efforts into like 5 or 6 things. You need to demonstrate what it does. You need to explain some things about it, why it's better. You need some social validation that people say that this works. You need to hook people with something interesting, and you need to build your brand a little bit. But building your brand like that will come as you get millions, if not billions, of views. And most people in your stage are really precious about their brand. And I hope people see that about, like, look at our first commercial. Our brand is not the right one. And we have one of our clients, we have replaced their products in their ads over the past 4 years. We've replaced their branding and their actual package that they're holding. We've replaced them 4 times digitally. And we keep on saying it doesn't matter. Just because what you're selling isn't the packaging, it's the product. and it's like the C went from capital to lowercase. Like if it's working, we're happy to do it and make just a little bit of money. It's not super profitable and not super fun, but we can do it. But don't be too precious with the brand either. Yeah. And if you're going to pick a fight, it's best to pick it about what your product is and what it does.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that I would just start. I think a lot of times I'm amazed even huge brands that we talk to who they're like, oh, we're so afraid to like, can we be funny? Can we, do this? Can we do this? And it's like, so instead we're doing nothing. Like we're hiring people in their sweatpants to make UGC for us. And it's like, isn't that kind of crazy that instead of making something that you're worried might offend someone or might be a little funny and you don't know that fits your brand, instead you're just not doing anything. So I would just say like there's a great, I can't remember the name of it, there's a really cool, it's like an anti-sweating product. I don't know if anyone's seen this. No, it's not. It's for guys, and it's like the founder's in the video, and he's like playing both parts. If anyone's seen it, I've been getting it a ton because I think it's funny, and so I've watched it. But it's just him sitting in two chairs, and he's kind of like, everyone's talking about this product, and it's like, if you sweat, and it's just him. It's like him and an iPhone. But he thought about like, who are the people I'm going after? People who sweat. So I'm going to talk to those people. I'm going to make some comments just about like, what are the frustrations those people have? It's like every time I put on a dress shirt, everyone can tell I'm sweating like crazy. So he just kind of talked through that and then just started making something. So just try it, even if it's something that you're like, I don't know that I want anyone to see this. It's okay.
In that video,
I was going to point out that Graham is sitting in the back. He's on his phone right now. He's doing a really good job with this. He's like, oh no, I got just called out. But he's got his own product. Yeah, he's making
He's
a video.
taking notes.
But he's just iterating a ton on it and engaging with his audience. And he's willing to scramble some eggs in the process. But I think it's doing really great for it. I really like what you're doing with your stuff. It doesn't have to be high production value, but he's making stuff. And making stuff and putting out there, you learn so much. And an ounce of real world knowledge is worth so much more than theory of a marketer that's been around for a long time. And you're like, oh, we've tried this. This is what we learned from it. So we do postmortems on like everything we do. What did we learn from this? What worked great? What didn't work so great? And I really enjoy it. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but we have a great team that's willing to be frank with each other about, okay, put this out. What did we learn from it? And it's usually not, we shouldn't do ads. It's like, okay, maybe we need a little bit more production. Maybe we need a little bit more of this. Let's try something new. Most people, this is the best thing, and I think, Alex, you pointed this out when you were up here. Your bad ads people forget really quickly. Like unless they offend like 5 types of people in 10 types of ways. But your bad ads get forgotten and your great ones get remembered, and then you put more money on your great ones. So, yeah.
One thing that we do that's just a simple, easy thing, assuming you're not in the video, make the video, walk up to a stranger, be like, hey, I'm gathering feedback. You can be super mean. When I talk to people about PillowCube, usually my first question is, what did you like the least about it? Or why did you not buy? When people are like, oh, I've been thinking about it. And it's like, okay, why not? Because then it kind of opens them up like, okay, you're open to the feedback. I'm going to tell you why. And that's, I think, the biggest thing as entrepreneurs we're afraid of. We're afraid of like, this person's telling me they didn't buy. Great, let's figure out why. So
They're going to tell you your baby's ugly.
Yeah.
But we actually have a chance to change the baby if we want to.
Yep.
That's cool. Okay, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for letting us come here. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
I'm really excited. When we get the recording, we will post that on YouTube. We'll put that into the Silicon Slopes Slack. If you're not a member of that, you can join. I don't have the site for that. But if you're not a member of the Silicon Slopes Slack, I highly recommend it because we'll be sharing videos like that. We'll put it on LinkedIn and stuff too. And then please keep an eye out for updates about the Marketing Summit in April. Thank you again to Jason and the Executive Education Program at the University of Utah and to Commerce Catalyst. So we're going to be doing a session similar to like this, except we'll have 2 ad buyers as well on the panel. So they're going to be getting all into the nitty gritty about what's working or not. Creative that makes your ROAS roar. You can tell these very creative names were written by that guy. So thank you once again.